Good morning. I just wanted to talk to you today about why your mindset is so important. Um, a lot of people want to talk about, changing your mindset and, how important it is. I just want to give my kind of 2 cents on that. Yeah, I hadn't prepared anything, so we're just going to get into it. Um, does your mindset perpetuate life? Are you living a life that allows for other people to live a life? When we talk about a mindset, or ideas that govern the mind, what's okay and what's not okay? Where do you draw the line? These are things that I've struggled with majority of my life to try to understand just that. When we live in a society that when we live under a governing body that says it's okay for some people to benefit while other people lose it all, um, we're not living in a society that's meant to last. The ongoing theme throughout governed society is that they have to go through a revolution every 400, 500 years, 400 to 1,000 maybe. Fact check me in the comments. Throw a comment down below letting me know what you think is true, what's not true. But I heard that there was a parliament somewhere in the world that's had lasted 1,000 years. That's one of the longest standing examples of that. Now, if we were to change our mindset, right? If we were to change the way that we think about those things, I'm sure they would last longer and they would be more beneficial to the people involved. The idea that one person has more value than another person in terms of ignorant parameters. When I say ignorant, basically going back to the root of ignore, right? When you look at something so simple, you ignore its complexity. That's as simple as I can make it. If you were to find a spaceship in your backyard trying to take a swimming pool and you just thought that it was a spaceship, you're kind of missing it. So the best way is to keep your mind open, to continuously question what this is. You might see it as traveling through space and being part of that kind of a vehicle, right? But that's your own mind that puts a box around what that thing is because you've been grown up and learned that way that's what a vehicle takes you from point A to point B. If it was from someone else's time, if it was from someone else's galaxy, if it was from somewhere else, you have to keep an open mind to think, what did those people use it for? What ideas do they have around traveling? When I think of that example, I think that we have a hard time trying to survive the distance it takes to travel. So it's possible some of these vehicles could be life supporting systems where the driver or the other people are maintained, kind of similar to the idea we have of cryo sleep, where we know that the distance it takes for us to go there, it's going to take a long time, and all the crew could be dead. We could age and die out by the time we get there. So we need to develop some kind of system where they sleep and their metabolisms go low and they don't age and other things happen so that they could survive by the time they get there. Now, with that idea, why haven't we looked at or other people talked about these spaceships being that for the occupants involved? And that's just one example. There's if you change your mindset and you try to figure out what these other people have been doing, what are the other possibilities? Or they're almost unlimited, they're almost endless. So for us to keep our minds simple is basically to ignore the obvious and remain in ignorance. So in hopes of trying to not be ignorant, we need to stop ignoring things, right? We need to be more open to different perspectives, open to other people's ideas of how things go, and understand that anything that wants to close your mind and make your mind smaller in facts of simplicity and not paying attention to the complexity, then that's ignorance. That's the root cause of it there. The internet and other tools that we have been flooded in order to drown out any kind of other perspectives, meaning that a lot of the tools that we use are trying to perpetuate the ignorance. So when I say, just like I'm saying, like ignoring things about things, so it would be very hard to pay attention to the details of things. So it's easier just to simplify them and move on. With that said, that's part of the problem. That's part of the ignorance cycle. That if we can't keep moving forward through time and history as a species, everything will cease to exist, from our perspective. What does that mean, right? There's a lot of, well, not that much, but there's some perspectives that talk about a collective consciousness. Now, I agree with the collective consciousness, but it's not just human. It's a consciousness that flows through everything. And that consciousness is fed by the different individuals in the consciousness, and the humans are a big player in that. So if we can redefine our definition of conscious, if we can redefine our definition of sentient, if we can redefine our definition of living, we can understand these ideas better and understand, what it means to go extinct. What does it mean for a group of people on the planet to no longer exist, and what their perspective was unique and complex, and how it added to everything else. So I urge you to think about what kind of mindset you carry throughout your day. What kind of ideas do you give time to, and what kind of ideas do you push out? I believe that the greatest idea is love. Now, love is very complicated. It's very confusing at times, but it is very, very beneficial to those involved. When I look at, what people might say it's opposite, hate is very powerful too, but it is not beneficial to those involved. So those are kind of the areas that I'm pointing at to say, maybe we should examine our mindset when it comes to those things, both love and hate. Do we continue to think that we should love just our family? Should we love just our loved ones? Should we love just the animals or the creatures that we find pleasant? Or should we expand our love because it's beneficial to us and to whoever's involved? And then if we flip the script around a little bit and we say we should hate our enemies and then start to expand on that and realize that it's not beneficial to ourselves or to anyone or to anything, then we're really coming down to the underlying problem with what we call civilization. If civilization allows for hate and the destruction of other people, then it has to accept the fact that one day it will be destroyed by its own doing. But if we live in a civilization or a society that perpetuates love and growth, inclusion, then that society doesn't have the problem of being destroyed. That society might survive continuously through time. So when you bring war into the mix, that's a different level of hate. And, well, I guess I mean modern war. A lot of the people have their own ideas of what war is, and I would agree that there's different takes on it. So war or fighting should take place for the ultimate good to come out, not for the strongest hate to survive. So if we're fighting wars in order to see whose hate is bigger, we've already lost. But if we're fighting wars to see whose love makes more sense, then you're probably on the right side of the war. Kind of goes back to some of these timeless things like Star Wars or what else? It's just anything that applies to what humans deem good and evil. So you have to think that if you were born into a certain side, you would be biased on what the other side thinks or knows because you weren't exposed to anything on that side. But the key to knowing which side is the right side for you is understanding love and hate, understanding ignorance and consciousness. That's all I got for this test. I think we're at 20 minutes, so I'm going to end it here. I hope that somebody can relate, somebody can dig through what I've said and get something out of it and not feel so alone and not feel the negative effects of the mindsets and society that surround us.